Hi, Nickel here. Welcome to Flip Your Life, where you take your life and make a better version of it. Speaking of lives, I think that there's a way to think about living that you have two lives. You have at least two phases of your life. You have your first phase, which is mostly childhood, and then you have your second phase, which could be called adulthood. But what is adulthood? Is it when you turn 18? Is it, when you finally get a job, like a full-time job? There's a lot of debate over that, and I kind of think of it as this: when you get it, the most important milestone in your life that really separates childhood from like adulthood, and I use that term very, very loosely, is when you realize and you really understand that your life is limited, that you are impermanent, and you are not immortal, and you only have a limited time on this earth, and you really start to think, how do I want to spend that time? And suddenly, at that moment, your time becomes the most valuable resource that you have. And I'll tell you, for me, it was like kind of a process that took maybe a year or two to kind of really, from when I started that to when I really kind of internalized it. And during that time, I started to think, which television shows do I really want to watch? Or which books do I want to read? I guess a big thing was, for the longest time, I had 200 to 250, 300 books on my bookshelf, which is really hard because I keep moving. And every time I move, I have to get rid of books, that kind of thing. But there's a moment when I was like, wait a minute, I'm not going to get to all of these books. Right? I have more books than I have time to read because of the amount of reading. And I could maybe just really go all in and try to read all those books, but then there's so many other books I keep buying. I would literally go to Goodwill, and they would see me coming, and they would be like, okay, let's get you a box. Because what I would do is I would stack them up my arm, and it would be I would limit only as many books as I could carry in one arm. Because I would just get obsessive about purchasing books, and I was buying them much faster than I could read them. And so to finally recognize that I don't have time to read all of those books, that was kind of a time. That was during a time when I was realizing that my time was very valuable. That I shouldn't be wasting time on books I don't really want to read, or books that I'm only mildly interested in. I should really focus on the books that I'm very interested in, the ones that I really think I'll get the most out of and really improve my life or improve my perspective. And so what do you think of that? What do you think of that being, and I kind of think of that as defining, and for me it was I was probably 29 when I had that realization. And I don't know, I think that's where I kind of define adulthood. And before that, I'm not saying I was, maybe you could call that young adulthood, but, and it's a little embarrassing to say that I didn't, by my own definition, become an adult until I turned 29. But that's kind of, but that's how I feel. So what do you guys think about that? How do you have you had that epiphany? What do you think of it? Does it make sense? I want to hear it.